The 2016 Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series, brought to you from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting. The race for United States Senate.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Hullinger, weeknight co-anchor for WXIA 11 Alive here in Atlanta. Welcome to the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series, originating from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting in Atlanta. This is the debate among the candidates for United States Senate. Let's meet the candidates. They are in alphabetical order: Jim Barksdale, a small business owner and investment manager. Alan Buckley is a Georgia attorney and CPA, working primarily in business and administrative law. And Johnny Isakson has been a United States Senator for Georgia since 2005. Before that, he represented Georgia's 6th Congressional District in the United States House of Representatives from 1999 to 2005. So let's now meet our panelists. We begin with Jim Galloway. He writes Political Insider, a political column for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Lori Geary is a political reporter for WSB-TV in Atlanta. And Kimberly Scott is a reporter and anchor for WJBF in Augusta. Now, tonight's debate will consist of 3 rounds. For more information on the rules for each round, please visit the Atlanta Press Club website, atlantapressclub.org. So let's get started in the first round. We are going to begin. I'm going to ask a question of all 3 of the candidates. Donald Trump has made a lot of noise over the last week or so talking about this election, according to him, if he does not win, is rigged. Is this election rigged? Mr. Barksdale, if you would begin.
Well, I certainly do not believe it's rigged. I believe that we're going to have a very strong turnout, and I'm willing to abide by that turnout. I do think that we want to make sure that no one is intimidated in going to the polls, and there has been some of the rhetoric, I think, that frankly is concerning. So I want to make sure that there are proper poll watchers out there and that everyone turns up to vote, but I don't think it's rigged.
Mr. Buckley.
No, I frankly find that comment kind of bizarre. But let me say this. In 2004, when I first ran against Senator Isakson in Georgia, a guy sent me an email after the race and said, it was a small county in Georgia, and said, only 80 people voted, and this guy said, me and my whole family voted for you, but the official numbers showed up as you getting a 0. And so I think that there is, any voting system is going to have some flaws in it, but do I think the election is rigged? I don't think that would be the appropriate term for it. So no, I don't agree with that.
Senator Isakson.
No, Jeff, I don't think the election's rigged. I know Brian Kemp, our Secretary of State, and his office very well. They do a great job. I've been involved for a long time in Georgia, was in the legislature when we modernized our election system. I think it's fair, and every candidate has an accountable mechanism to go to if they think it's unfair.
All right, now each panelist will ask a question to 2 of the candidates, and we will begin right now with Lori Geary for your question to Alan Buckley.
Mr. Buckley, hello to all 3 of you. You're kind of considered a spoiler in this race because no third-party candidate has ever won statewide here in Georgia. A brand new AJC poll out today has you polling at 5%. Do you have any realistic expectations that you could possibly win this election? Well,
my campaign manager read to me an article from the AJC this morning saying I was at 11%, so I'm confused. Jim Galloway asked a question in 2004. Johnny and I were running against each other. Denise Majette was here. And he said, Libertarians typically poll 1% to 2%. What's the point? Well, the point is our country has tremendous financial problems. In 2007, the GAO said our debts were going to spiral out of control. The debts have more than doubled in 9 years. We went from under $9 trillion to 20, and the sky's the limit hereafter with all these baby boomer entitlements. These 2 parties, no offense, are not going to do anything to solve these problems. In contrast, I'm an attorney, CPA, and I have thought through these problems over years and years, and I come up with solutions that work. They involve some sacrifice. But these 2 parties are driving the country into the ground financially. The Libertarian Party is the only choice. We're the only ones who are fiscally conservative.
Lori, you may now ask a question of Senator Isakson.
Senator Isakson, a couple of weeks ago, we heard a very lewd tape of Donald Trump that really made global news. You say that you are supporting the Republican ticket. My question is, after you heard these tapes and then after you heard accusations from women, did you ever have second thoughts about supporting Donald Trump?
I released a public statement when those disclosures came out that I totally disagreed with what was said and thought it was totally inappropriate. My 12-year-old granddaughter Elizabeth is in the audience today. I think we have a responsibility as public officials to be role models to our kids, and anything that's said that's inappropriate or the least bit sexist or discriminatory should be abolished immediately.
Do you support Donald Trump still?
I'm going to vote for him as I support the ticket.
Jim Galloway, now a question for Jim Barksdale.
Mr. Barksdale, thanks to all three of you for being here. You are the founder of an investment fund firm that has done very well, but during this campaign you have made some remarks about the shortcomings of capitalism. Mr. Isakson has accused you of hypocrisy for opposing the export of American jobs, but profiting from investments in companies that have shipped jobs overseas. How do you respond?
Well, my job as an investor was to represent my client's best interest, not my own personal viewpoints. And so I've invested almost exclusively in companies in the United States of America. And they all benefit from the various trade deals that Senator Isakson has put forward. And those are the rules of the road in the United States. So you can't invest in American companies without being exposed to the fact that some of these companies have made profits and benefited from the rules of the road that had been set in Washington. My point in running for the race, and the reason I'm in it, is because from a personal social standpoint, I've seen that those rules may have benefited companies. They've made a lot of money, but it's harmed our society because too much money has gone to the top and not enough has been spread among the people who are actually doing the work. And when you get to that level of separation between where the money is, what happens is the capitalism can't work because there's not enough buying power for the demand to keep the economy growing.
Jim, now your question for Senator Isakson.
Yes, Mr. Isakson. Problems within the Veterans Administration continue. This morning, the AJC is reporting on an Atlanta VA employee who had been targeted for highlighting wrongdoing. You've been pushing a major overhaul of accountability practices at the VA for the better part of this year, but your proposal has yet to make it to the Senate floor, despite your chamber being controlled by the Republican Party. Why is that?
We've had some difficulty with some members who don't like some of the provisions of that bill, but it's an omnibus bill, and it's not the accountability portion that's been the problem. And for the record, the last night of the session before we adjourned to come home for the elections here in October, we passed 17 of the provisions of that bill under what's known as unanimous consent. So we're making progress every day to work towards, by the end of this year, having a full accountability measure approved by the United States House, United States Senate, and signed by the President of the United States. And while I've got a second in my time, I forgot to say thank you to the Atlanta Press Club and to all of you for making this possible for each and every one of us running for office. This is an outstanding opportunity to talk about the issues that confront Georgians and our position on them. Thank you very much.
Kimberly Scott, now your turn, and you get to ask two candidates a question. Your first question goes to Mr. Buckley.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Mr. Buckley, as a CPA, I understand why the tax code would be of interest to you. I wanted to ask you, you are proposing ending the income tax for corporations and for individuals. Explain realistically how those numbers will actually work.
Well, the problem is we run deficits every year, and in good years we run 3%, and when we have a recession we run 8 or 10%. When the economy grows at 1 to 2%, that's the debt spiraling out of control. 13 more years of baby boomers, Social Security, and Medicare to come. I took 2 years and analyzed the tax system and wrote a 30-some page article that I sent off to Tax Notes magazine. They were going to publish it. At the last minute, they backed off. But I went through every possible tax system that our country could use to replace the complex income tax system. And the corporate income tax is the most complicated, followed by the individual income tax. I came up with a system. It's on my website that it includes a consumption tax that's got an X rate, and it eliminates the income tax, but you go to a X rate FICA tax and a 2X rate self-employment tax. You have credits against the FICA/self-employment tax, so it becomes progressive, but everybody pays some tax. There's not a double layer of tax. It's simple. It prevents jobs from going overseas. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Kimberly, you get the final question of this round for Mr. Barksdale.
Mr. Barksdale, The Justice Department just sent out a notice and said that they would send fewer monitors to the polls. And the Voting Rights Act, the Section 5 of that Voting Rights Act was struck down. You want to bring that back. What do you say about the Justice Department not being there to monitor since this Section 5 is no longer viable?
Yes, I did say that in the opening question that I was concerned that some of the rhetoric caused intimidation at the polls. I do think that continues. I think that particularly continues among smaller or more rural areas, particularly where African Americans may be concerned about turning out to vote. And that's why I think bringing back Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act is so important. We in this country have a belief that all are created equal and that every voice matters. And I believe everything we can do to reinforce our own beliefs is we all benefit from that.
So that concludes our first round. In the second round, candidates will question both of their opponents. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to ask the question, then 60 seconds to respond, and then 30 seconds for a rebuttal. Are we clear on all of that? I think we're all set. By random selection, Jim Barksdale, you ask the first question, and you do so of Alan Buckley.
Mr. Buckley, first of all, I know that you are a conservative and you're concerned about the debt. I know Senator Isakson is also a conservative. Frankly, I think in many respects I'm a fiscal conservative as well. But can you tell me the areas that you feel like you most disagree with Senator Isakson?
Well, first of all, Johnny tells everyone he's a conservative. If I had a penny for every time I saw the word conservative next to his name in his ads, I'd be a multimillionaire in this election. The fact is, the Conservative Review gives Johnny a 30 score, which is an F, which ties him to Maxine Waters, who was a liberal Democrat out of LA. She gets a 30 F. So Johnny's not really a conservative. So when you hear all these ads about him being conservative, where I really disagree, I offer solutions to the problems. And they involve some sacrifice. I propose, complete analysis and reasonable reform to all the entitlement system. And entitlement spending is 60 to 70% of spending now. Johnny doesn't propose anything. He's never proposed a tax, solution. No offense, Johnny, but you were behind the fair tax. And I suggest I think we need to eliminate half of our 800 foreign military bases when the rest of the world combined has less than 60. So I produce numbers that work, solutions that work. They're on my website.
Mr. Barksdale, you get a rebuttal now.
I happen to believe that the major problem in our country is not on the tax side. I believe the problem is the distribution of where income is being earned by those who are able to make our economy productive. And what I would like to see, and where I disagree, is with the trade deals have not been taking care of our workers here in this country. They have sent too many jobs overseas, and when incomes are going down, our incomes in this country are down since 2000, since Senator Isakson went to Washington. And you can't have a growing economy when incomes are declining and debt is going up.
All right, Mr. Barksdale, now you can ask Senator Isakson a question.
Senator Isakson, I know that you do continue to support Donald Trump, and I know you, despite his horrific statement about women, and I know that you earlier said that you disagreed with them. But what I'd like to ask is, given the number of women that have now come forward and have now accused him not just of talking about sexual assault, but actually committing them, do you agree that all these women are lying? And I'd appreciate, or do you think, do you agree with Donald Trump that they're lying? And I'd appreciate a yes or no answer.
Well, first of all, I'm going to rebut what was just said a minute ago by Mr. Buckley. I think I get 30 seconds on that. If you believe what he was talking about in terms of what the American Conservative Federation or whomever that was ratings, then I got some underwater land in Florida I'd love to sell to you. The fact of the matter is, if you go to the NFIB, if you go to the American Chamber of Commerce, if you go to the American Conservative Union, most of the rating agencies, you'll find me rated as a conservative. As far as Mr. Barksdale's question, I've made my comments on Donald Trump. I made clearly my answer a minute ago on what he said about women, which is totally inappropriate. I think it was wrong, and I think he should be held accountable for it.
Mr. Barksdale, you get a rebuttal now.
Well, from a yes or no standpoint, I guess my question is, are you saying that the women were telling the truth, then they should be heard? Or are you saying that Donald Trump should be listened to?
I'm not about to defend anybody in a case that causes a criminal accusation, which sexual harassment is, based on innuendo facts that are handed out at a debate.
Well, my response is I think that Senator Isakson continues to support Donald Trump, frankly, because you have much more in common with him than you may want us to believe. Let's start with the fact that you both inherited your companies from your fathers. They were both involved in the real estate business, and both were actually accused under the Fair Housing Discrimination Act for discrimination against African American companies. In your case, your company, Northside Realty, lost a case in the years before you were running for office, where in the years before you ran for office,
You've got to wrap it up, Mr. Barksdale.
there were over 3,000 houses sold, and not a single one sold to an African American.
Do I get a rebuttal?
You do.
I need 30 seconds for about each of the 5 things he just accused me of. But first and foremost, my father was a great American businessman, was a great man, and I miss him to this day. He was accused in the case in the 1970s where the final ruling was the case failed of proof, but we ended up going through a exercise of teaching all of our agents the Fair Housing Act of 1968 and 1966. But don't ever bring up my father in a negative standpoint whatsoever, or make an accusation that my father was a discriminatory man.
And your firm was found guilty, and then you had 25 employees come and approach the firm in terms of violations of EEOC for violation of
I have
against
no idea
racial
what you're talking about
discrimination.
whatsoever, and I
Got to
don't
wrap
think
it up,
you do
Mr.
either.
Barksdale. Senator Isakson, you get a quick response to that one.
I have no idea what he's talking about 25 people coming out under EEOC. I just know in the 22 years I ran the company, we never had such a case. I passed the first fair housing law for the state of Georgia. I voted for Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act and think every state in the United States of America ought to be subject to the Voting Rights Act, just not 13 states in the South.
The reason it matters is I think that you showed when you were starting to run for office and the values of your own company were that it didn't embrace the importance of economic opportunity knocking on the door.
You're going to have to wrap it up,
American.
Mr. Barksdale.
And I
Senator,
think
I'm
that
going to give you a
continues
quick
today.
response to this one as well.
It's hard to shake hypocrisy, that's all I can say, and that's all that you hear coming out of Mr. Barksdale.
Senator Isakson, now your turn to question your opponents. Your first question is for Mr. Barksdale.
Mr. Barksdale, I'd like to know your position on the rule proposed by the EPA on the waters of the USA.
Again, we as Americans have valued clean air and clean water. This goes back to seeing in Los Angeles the smog and even the pollution of the River Hudson. I fully support all aspects of making sure that we live up to those obligations, and that is better for all of us. I do not feel like that hurts our economy. I feel like it helps us grow. And I feel like the trade bills have actually been a part of allowing companies to bypass our standards of decency with the environment. You can look at the dirty air in China. You can look at the waters in China, and we don't want to go back there. We don't want to go turn the page back to pollution like we had in the past.
Senator, you get a 30-second rebuttal now.
The Constitution gives the Congress of the United States the responsibility for navigable waterways of the Americas, but what the EPA is trying to do is take control of every waterway that exists, period, even if it's a pond on a cattle farm in South Georgia or a puddle in the middle of a road in Atlanta. And the overly regulatory environment of this administration and others like it are making it impossible for anybody to do business, whether they're a farmer or whether they're a developer. I, too, am for clean water and clean air, and that can be accomplished, but you don't have to regulate people out of business to do so.
Senator, let's move on. Your question now for Alan Buckley.
Is my question?
Yes, sir.
Alan, in April, I read an interview you did, which was a great interview, by the way, with Red and Black in Athens, talking about the drug issue, which you and I share a lot of common interest in. But you referred to an economist study that recommended the legalization of drugs as the best way to control illegal drugs. How do you reconcile that with the opiate problem in America today?
Well, that's not really what I said, Johnny. What I've said, and the drug problem is tremendous. It's huge, and it's got to be dealt with. What I was saying is The Economist magazine, which I read regularly, said the best way to deal with drugs is to follow Europe's lead. They said that Europe has a clearer head on drugs. And what they said is you go after the dealers criminally, you go after the distributors criminally, but then for the general population, you treat it as more of a health problem and you attack it with education and rehabilitation. That's what I said, Johnny. And by the way, you said in that same to these Red and Black earlier in the year that these kids need to get involved because they've got $19 trillion of debt and they're going to get their pocket picked if they don't get off their tails and get involved. You're the one picking their pocket. You voted for over $7 trillion worth of debt, and then you have the nerve to say you've never voted for a tax increase. You vote for all sorts of things that necessitate spending, huge spending. And then when the bill comes in, you vote for debt. And you have the nerve to say that you've never voted for a tax increase. And to me, that's hypocrisy.
Senator, you have a 30-second response to that.
I have never voted for a tax increase. I'm the one that proposed the biennial budget, which is the main solution towards having a balanced budget. I voted for the constitutional amendment to balance the budget. And the $2.1 trillion in cuts that are taking place in America today over the next 10 years in the federal budget are because of the Budget Conciliation Act that Mitch McConnell, myself, and 11 other members brought to an agreement to keep America from defaulting on its debt, ensuring that we began to reduce our spending on the discretionary level. And if we ever get a control of our entitlements, we'll be able to balance our budget all the way around.
Mr. Buckley, I'm going to give you about 15 seconds.
Get in control of our entitlements. You've done nothing there. My proposal with drugs is to let the states regulate them. The states will learn from each other. They'll do different things, and they'll gravitate towards best practices. They all have to balance their budgets, unlike the federal government. You know all about that.
That's about it.
Thank you.
Senator, you want a quick response to that?
I'll just mention just to conclude on the drug situation, what the biggest problem in America today is the overprescription of opioids, and the opioids are running rampant, where deaths are taking place all over the country. Opioids can be legally prescribed today. That has not solved the problem.
All right, Senator. Mr. Buckley now, you're front and center. Your question to Mr. Barksdale.
Jim, in 2011, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mike Mullen, said our nation's greatest national security threat is our national debt. You've acknowledged that debt's a big problem. Johnny's voted for over $7 trillion worth of debt. And over the next 13 to 15 years, we've got 13 more batches of Social Security and Medicare baby boomer entitlements coming due, and the debt is going to grow tremendously unless we make some changes. Should we make changes, and what changes should we make?
Well, I agree that the national debt is a significant problem. And while Senator Isakson does talk about not raising taxes, but basically what you've done is left what I would call a birth tax. All Americans born today are now born into almost 20 trillion of debt, whereas when you went to Washington, it was more like 5.5 trillion. And you can't say, wash your hands and say you weren't responsible for them, frankly. When you voted to deregulate Wall Street and then you supported President Bush's light-handed approach to regulating Wall Street, that's what took our economy off the cliff. And that had to create more than $4 trillion of debt right there. And then when you voted to take us in Iraq unnecessarily and recklessly, we've already known that that's created more chaos, and that's another $4 trillion of debt. So these increases of debt that we have taken on do put our country at risk. We can't be militarily strong when we're economically at risk and in debt. And so I think you have to take responsibility for this debt that's happened while you've been in Washington.
So the question from Mr. Buckley to Mr. Barksdale now directed to Senator Isakson. Senator, I think you get a rebuttal as a result of those charges.
Facts are stubborn things, and the truth is what you ought to pay attention to. Yes, I voted for the TARP. The TARP has returned a profit to the United States of America. That was the Wall Street case. I voted against the clunkers bill. I voted against the auto bailout. I voted against the stimulus that passed under the first Obama proposal because they were wrong for America. It didn't work. So let's get our facts right, Mr. Barksdale, before we make accusations that are incorrect.
Mr. Buckley, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, Jim, no offense, but you're all hat, no cattle. You had no substance whatsoever to that response to my question. And, I've heard you on WABE radio spewing off these numbers that are just clearly wrong. You don't know the numbers. You said the war in Iraq cost $4 trillion. The Congressional Research Service said it costed $815 billion. The Department of Defense said it cost $758 billion. The Brown University said it cost 1.1. That's not anywhere close to 4. You also said the Social Security Trust Fund is at $4 trillion. It's nowhere near that. You don't know your numbers.
Mr. Barksdale, you get a response to that.
Well, I think there have been plenty of studies that look in the all-in costs of the wars, and that the war in Iraq, even Afghanistan itself, the numbers I've seen are closer to $800 billion. These wars have significant cost, some of which we really haven't owned up yet to. If you look at the Veterans Administration, I feel like it's been severely underfunded. We have tremendous obligations looking forward that are creating obligations that are the direct result of unnecessary wars. And with respect to the economy, it wasn't the TARF and TALF that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the fact that when people don't have jobs, They go on welfare. More people have to retire early. Our unemployment insurance goes up. We have more people in jails. There's tremendous social costs from people not having jobs.
I'm going to give you about 15 seconds.
Yeah, one thing, I was against the Warner Act. That's what got me involved in politics. That and the finances of the federal government, which are potentially catastrophic. When Johnny went to Washington in '99, debt as a percentage of GDP was 58%. Now it's over 106%. $7 trillion of that is on his record. Look on my website. I've got all the detail. Thanks.
It's a very long 15 seconds. Senator, you were mentioned again. I think you get a quick mention as well. You get to speak.
A quick mention? Well,
You
quickly,
get to
I
speak.
voted to go into Iraq. I believe in peace through strength. I think only through the use of strength can you ever truly have peace. As far as all the things I've been blamed for, I'll take responsibility for my one part as 100th of the United States Senate. I'll also take credit for the things that I've done that brought about great solutions. And Mr. Barksdale just made a terribly incorrect statement. The VA has had the largest increase of appropriations from the United States Congress for the last 5 consecutive years, averaging almost 9% a year, bigger than any other agency of the government.
All right, Senator, we move on. Now, the final question of this round. Mr. Buckley, it is your question for Senator Isakson.
Johnny, your campaign has been running ads saying you're the hardest working senator in D.C., and you're one of the most conservative. Now, as I mentioned, the Conservative Review gave you a 30F, which ties you with Maxine Waters, whom the LA Times, which is a liberal publication, called, quote, an outspoken liberal. She gets the same score, 30D. The Heritage Foundation gives you a 53F score. What authorities do you base these ads upon? That's what I would like to know.
Well, first of all, the references you're making are two incredible organizations. The American Conservative Union is very credible. The U.S. Chamber is credible. NFIB is credible. But what most incredible of all is someone's record, what they've actually voted for and what they've actually done. We've cut $2.1 trillion because of the Budget Control Act, which I was a part of in August 2011. And because of that sequestration, we have it happening where the Congress itself exercised that right. So don't blame us for doing things that weren't in fact done when we in fact got them done.
The Budget Control Act immediately borrowed $2.1 trillion and then said we'll cut spending by $2.1 trillion over the next decade. Of course, that's all been pushed back once already. And Johnny, let me finish. It's my.
I didn't say a word.
Okay, all right.
I'm getting ready to.
Let me
but
say
I didn't
this.
Say a word.
People, look at my website. He thinks the Heritage Foundation is not credible. The American Conservative Union that he cites gave Mitch McConnell a perfect 100% score for 2012. The Conservative Review gives Mitch McConnell a 40 score. So, Johnny, you've been deceiving the public for years and years, and you've been getting away with it. And meanwhile, our country is going down the tubes. I'm not going to let you get away with it here. You did it in 2004 when we were in a debate right here.
The voters on the 8th day of November of this year are going to have a chance to select who they want to represent them in the United States Senate. I think they'll vote for a record of proven achievement of conservatism and a fiscal responsibility, and that's Johnny Isakson.
All right, that concludes round two for those just joining us. This is the debate between the candidates for Georgia's United States Senate. We will now go to our third and final round. In this round, each panelist will ask a question to the candidate of his or her choice until we run out of time. As a point, as being the moderator here, I have a little, I get to invoke moderator privilege. I get to ask a couple of questions too, if I so choose. But let's begin right now. Lori Geary, start it for us.
This question is directed to Mr. Barksdale, but you can all weigh in on tax plans. Hillary Clinton's plan, she says, is to raise taxes on the wealthy and the corporations because they're not paying their fair share. You are a wealthy businessman. Do you feel as though you have paid your fair share, and do you agree with Hillary Clinton's tax plan?
Well, again, what I see, first of all, I can promise you I have paid my fair share, and you know, the truth is over some years my amount of taxes and gifts have been in the 65% range overall. So I've done everything I could to turn my good fortune to help society. And I think corporations should do that. What I see in corporate America as an investor, I look at how much taxes actually get paid, not the actual tax rate that's stated. And when I started investing in the 80s and 90s, corporations regularly would pay taxes in the 35% range, closer to what was stated. But there's been a long decline in the amount of taxes that actually get paid by corporate America. They've been bypassing our tax system by basically using offshore loopholes that Senator Isakson has not shut down and that has allowed over $2 trillion to sit offshore and not be taxed. That's the loophole that I think we need to be closing.
Mr. Buckley, you can jump in.
I think the public needs to know, when you watch these debates at the presidential level, when Hillary says, my numbers don't make things worse, we're still going to add $8 to $12 trillion of additional debt over the next decade. What she's saying is, I'm going to add spending of X amount, and I'm going to raise taxes by X amount. So she's not going to solve any of the problems. I just want people to understand that. And the tax proposal that I put out uses algebra, an X rate for the consumption tax, an X rate for the FICA tax, and 2X for the self-employment tax. X balances the budget. It discourages jobs being sent overseas, ends corporate inversions because it does not matter where you're headquartered. So,
Senator?
Well, I think taxes ought to be fair and they ought to be equitable, and I think everybody ought to pay their fair share. But in terms of the federal tax code, I believe we ought to go to a territorial tax system for business, where money is taxed where it's earned. If Coca-Cola sells their Coca-Cola in India, they pay the tax in India, but they don't have to pay another tax to bring it back in the United States of America. That's why you have so many inversion proposals going on. We ought to have a territorial system. That's number one. Number two, we ought to end the gimmicks in the code and take away those deductions, misdirections, and other uses of the tax code to get people to do things, and instead use the money that you buy down, use that money that you save to buy down the rate to have a simpler, flatter, fairer tax.
Kimberly Scott, you get the next question.
My question is for Senator Isakson. I want to talk to you about the Affordable Care Act. There are many people who have coverage, health care coverage for pre-existing issues because of the Affordable Care Act. On your website, you share that you want to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. How would you do that, and how would you make sure pre-existing cases are covered with your proposal?
Well, first of all, I'm glad I've got a record of what I've proposed in the Congress and what I did when we debated the Affordable Care Act in 2009. But specifically, there are some things in the Act that ought to be preserved, and one of them is pre-existing condition. And the second one is allowing a child up to age 26 to stay on their parents' health insurance plan. That is actuarially sound for health insurance itself. But you've really got to replace the whole system because it's driving us to a single-payer system with government control where we need to bring about more competition. For example, we ought to allow the interstate sale of health insurance across state lines. We ought to have associated health plans to allow them to come back so people can form groups together to negotiate in a large group rather than an individual group for their health rates. Those are just two things we could change immediately that will make a huge difference.
let me say I agree with Johnny on universal availability of coverage that needs to exist. And if that's all we had in the health care law, that would have been a great result. But the problem is the Affordable Care Act goes way beyond that. And it's got just so much bureaucracy and it's so complicated. But Johnny had an opportunity to amend the Affordable Care Act when it came time to fund the bill. And he chose not to. He basically pushed forward with the funding. And I understand why he didn't. It was probably because the Republicans don't have a plan. They've never had a plan for health care. I mean, I don't like most of the Affordable Care Act, but at least the Democrats did something.
All right, Mr. Buckley, Mr. Barksdale. You do indeed.
My feeling is that this is another case where Senator Isakson has not fulfilled responsibility of the people of doing something about the rising health care costs, but has instead just politicized the issue. What I would like to see is someone in government standing up for the people and saying, our government should be negotiating and aggressively the cost of health care to make sure it comes down. I agree we need more competition. I don't disagree with your statements on that. But what I disagree with is sitting there and just not doing anything about it and playing politics with it.
Senator Isakson, you get a rebuttal to that.
10 a.m. on Christmas Eve 2009, I voted against the Affordable Care Act on its final passage before the United States Senate, so Mr. Buckley's statement is patently incorrect.
No,
Secondly, it's my turn now.
Go ahead.
Secondly, I was on the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, which did the markup over 67 hours of the Affordable Care Act, and introduced legislation like what Congressman Tom Price has pending today in the House of Representatives to have a better plan than the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is a bad act for America.
Jim Galloway, your question is next.
Gentlemen, this is for all of you. We'll start with Mr. Isakson. We see the daily horror in Aleppo, and one of the great conflicts in multiple wars in Iraq is now underway in Mosul. In his 2 terms, George W. Bush was criticized for injecting the U.S. military into places that it ought not to have gone. In his 2 terms, Barack Obama has been criticized for his failure to engage. What's the correct balance here?
Well, first of all, I have voted for the war as I've been accused of voting for, and I am proud to be for peace through strength and proud for a strong military, and I love the United States military and what they do for our country to keep us safe, number one. Number two, I regret the fact that the Obama administration pulled us out of Iraq after the surge was successful, which allowed ISIL to create a home base, which is the root of the problem in Aleppo today. So I voted for the war to go into Iraq. I'm sorry the current president pulled us out to create a vacuum that was filled by ISIL. And I think until we put the boots on the ground necessary to have a coalition of the willing in the Middle East to go in and root them out, we're going to continue to have the threat of terrorism, not only in the Middle East, but at home in America.
Mr. Buckley.
Yeah, I was against Iraq. That got me off the couch, as I said. I knew it would make our terrorism problems worse. A lot of innocent people would be killed, and it'd make our financial problems a lot worse. And all three have happened. And we've had two wars that we shouldn't have been in since World War II, Vietnam and Iraq. And if I am elected, I will do everything I can to investigate when something is proposed, like the war in Iraq. Dick Cheney went up there to D.C. and rammed it down the Republican throats, and Johnny bought into it. You should have stood up and did your own investigation and realized it was a fraud, and it was going to do all the things that I just said it did, because it did. And it destabilized the Middle East. We have to realize that. We've been in more wars than any country since World War II. We only go to war when we really need to. And the situation now, it is more difficult because Barack Obama, I'm sorry, has been pretty weak on foreign policy, drew the line in Syria and then backed off. And at that point, it was open season for these foreign countries. That's one of his weaknesses. So, and we've got to be prudent as to when we get involved in these foreign endeavors, because they result in a lot of deaths of innocent people.
Mr. Barksdale.
Over and over again, my sense is Senator Isakson purports to be a careful conservative, but what I see, frankly, is really recklessness. And Iraq is just another example of that. At the very least, a conservative should sort of learn the lessons of Iraq, and I don't think you have. You continue to call for boots on the ground in Iraq, in Syria. You've talked about it going into Ukraine, Crimea. The veterans that I talk to really are tired of this. They want to see us doing what I think we are doing now, which is basically making sure that we're supporting our allies, supporting our partners over there, and letting them take the lead. Ultimately, this is a fight that only they can win. We can't go in and have no exit strategy again. We've got to learn from the lessons, and we've got to be prudent with the lives of our sons and daughters. So I disagree vehemently with Senator Isakson's trigger-happy approach of just more troops on the ground and bomb, bomb, bomb.
Senator, your response.
Combat is always the last resort, but the ability to conduct that combat and win always makes negotiations and diplomacy the easiest. But I've heard a lot of criticism of Johnny Isakson and the way he's voted. I haven't heard even Mr. Barksdale make any suggestions about what we ought to do to solve that problem. As far as I'm concerned, a strong fist is more important than a weak mind.
Mr. Barksdale, would you like to respond to that?
Well, I think if he didn't hear it, it's because he wasn't listening. I said that right now we are working with Iraq and Kurd partners, and we are pushing ISIS back. And I think that is the way to go. I don't believe that we should be out there in the lead, taking first responsibility. Instead, it's their fight to win. It's a terrible situation where basically religious fanaticism has taken hold because we went in there and broke, and we went into Iraq without an exit strategy, and that's part of what you need to be held responsible for.
Laura Geary, you are next.
I want to switch gears and talk immigration reform. Big issue here in Georgia. Senator Isakson, your Republican presidential candidate has said, famously, to build a wall, have Mexico pay for it. I want to know your thoughts on this, and also, realistically, what can be done with the estimated 11 million people living in the United States illegally?
Well, first of all, barriers are a part of the solution, and there are pictures so I can verify this next statement. Mike Pence and I, along with Secretary Chertoff, went to Yuma, Arizona and Fort Huachuca about 7 years ago, and we worked on the first project of building a wall in Arizona, which now exists today to help protect the border. What you have to do is be able to stop people from crossing at will and have throughputs they go through so you can control the people coming into your country, like Smuggler's Gulch in San Diego, where we have very little problem with illegal immigration. The problem with I'm a second-generation American. Anders Isaacson came to the United States in 1903, became a naturalized citizen. I support legal immigration. We've got to make sure that legal immigration works, and the best way we do it is by enforcing our laws, number one, And number two, going to a biometrically secure identification for every visa issued in the United States. You don't see any illegal immigrants coming in the airports of America. That's because the U.S. Visit Program has a fingerprint embedded in their identification so you can identify somebody who has a passport that's not really theirs. If we do that with every other one of the 43 legal visas to enter America, we'll have a way to begin to clamp down on illegal immigration and honor legal immigration.
So is there a pathway to citizenship? Is there amnesty?
There should be no amnesty, and no pathway should begin inside this country. It should only begin outside the country.
So then what happens to the 11 million people here?
You create a system where they can go back to their home case, apply to come back in the country and go through whatever system is put in place. But you can't just grant somebody amnesty in this country and make them a citizen if they came in here illegally.
Mr. Barksdale?
We have two problems. One is how do we want our workforce constituted with immigrants? And this is a political discussion which I'm happy to enter into. We are a nation of immigrants. We've welcomed and grown and thrived, frankly, by having people come to this country who bought into our ideals. But the human rights issue of all the people that are here is significantly different. We need the fastest path to honorable citizenship that we can get. These are people that have been here for decades working, some who came here to help us build the Olympics. And we cannot be demonizing them, separating them from the families, and trying to just throw them out.
Mr. Buckley?
Yeah, I'm the only one who seems to follow the time limits here. Against.
That's not true. That's not true. I'm ultimately the timekeeper, and it's right on target.
Unlike Johnny Isakson, who's voted for amnesty, he's going to tell you he didn't, but do your research, he has. Jim Barksdale is for amnesty. We're also a nation of laws, and I'm for enforcing the laws. And we had one batch of illegal immigrants that we let in the 80s. We made them legal. Now we got the second batch. If we make them legal, the next batch is going to follow. We do need to let more people in legally going forward. We've had the same quotas for decades, and we need to let some of these students who come here and excel stay.
Kimberly Scott.
Mr. Buckley, in the past, you've mentioned the need for judges to interpret the law. Judges are the last step before many men and women are incarcerated for a length of time, long sentences. How do you propose tweaking the judicial system so that those sentences are looked at on an individual basis and people aren't just pushed in like cattle?
Well, there's been a number of studies recently that all show that our incarceration imprisonment rate is excessive, and it results in more repeat offenders. We've got to find the right mix, which involves less imprisonment. There was an article in the AJC this week about Michigan having teaching prisoners to become machinists, and they have a 43% lower repeat offender rate. We need to do things like that. Let me say this: I'm for appointing judges who follow the strict letter of the law, the Constitution, looking at what was the intent of the drafters. I don't believe in this living and breathing Constitution. I have a friend in the audience who's in favor of it, but let me give you a direct quote, though, from the Conservative Review about Johnny. Isakson is usually a reliable vote to confirm most liberal executive and judicial nominees. That's one reason alone to not vote for Johnny. We need to get conservative judges who follow the Constitution and the statutory law.
Senator, your response.
I don't know what to say to somebody that'll take any subject, no matter what comes up, and just make a declaratory statement that he says is true, which is in fact patently wrong. So I'll just say Alan's wrong on every point in that statement.
Mr. Buckley?
I have the quote right here. It's on my website. Please look it up. It's right out of the Conservative Review, and they do all kinds of research on candidates. Johnny wants to say it's not credible. Do your own research and see how credible it is.
Mr. Barksdale?
Our country should not be a country that puts more into incarceration than to educating and making our citizens have opportunity. We have 5% of the world's population, but 25% of its prisons. Part of that is due to mandatory sentencing, which we need to end. We need to give judges discretion to make these decisions. And I've been in the prisons, and I've seen what a terrible situation that is. And we simply cannot allow that to continue. We need to invest and do what we can to get these people brought back into our society as productive citizens.
Mr. Barksdale, thank you. Jim Galloway.
Gentlemen, another question for all three of you here. Donald Trump has now endorsed term limits for members of Congress, 6 years for members of the House and 12 years for members of the Senate. Senator David Perdue has done likewise. And, of course, we have Mr. Isakson, who is seeking a third term. So from all of you, what do you think of term limits, and do we need a constitutional amendment to enforce them? starting with Mr. Barksdale.
Well, I have to say that I'm perfectly happy to support term limits. I personally would not seek to serve that many terms, and 1 or 2 for a senator I think is plenty enough. And in the House, I think, frankly, it should be a similar time frame, more like 12 years for the House, 12 years for the Senate. I think we want a government that allows people to come in, new voices to be heard, and basically keep the voice of the government, people, present in government. Part of the problem has been that without term limits, all the money flows to the incumbents. We've seen that with Senator Isakson. And really, that basically robs the voice of the people.
Senator?
Jim, that's a great question. In my career, I've been term limited 3 times already under the system we now operate. And on the 8th of November, if the voters of Georgia want to send me home, they can term limit me on the 8th of November. I think the best term limit of all is when the voters go to the polls and vote. If we had 100% turnout in every election and voted on the record of the people running for re-election, we'd have term limits the way they ought to be applied rather than an arbitrary system of just eliminating them.
Mr. Buckley.
I was talking to my campaign manager in advance, and I specifically said I think there should be 12 and 12, 12 in the Senate and 12 in the House, and I do believe it would require a constitutional amendment. I'm going to say something right now that I don't mean to be mean, but if that were the law, Johnny would not be running right now. And the best thing for Johnny, his family, our state, and our country would be if he were not running right now. And I talked to a lot of his friends who will tell me that confidentially.
Senator?
Well, I think that's a veiled reference to the fact that I disclosed a year and a half ago that I had Parkinson's, which was the hardest thing that I ever did and also the best thing that I ever did. Every week that goes by in this campaign, people come up to me and thank me for making known publicly what they themselves have privately known about themselves. The only way you play things like Parkinson is to be open and forthright about them. I've told everybody I intend to win that battle, and I will win that battle. And it's an inspiration for me to be able to stand up here today with these 2 gentlemen, fight for your vote on November 8th, and let the people of Georgia decide who's the best person to represent them.
Johnny, I wish you well in your health, honestly. It wasn't meant that way, but between everything, your voting record, you're not voting conservatively. That's the main problem. And we're a conservative state. And then you're telling everybody the opposite. We got to get our finances in order, and you're not proposing anything. You talked about a new tax bill proposal. Where's the bill? You could put that into a bill and send it. I've never even heard of that thing. In contrast, I've got all these proposals that I've worked on for 13 years that solve the problems. I mean, I've got the energy to go up there and put in the fight. No offense, I'm younger than you.
Senator, you get to respond to that.
You got more experience. I'll give you that.
I'm not going to hold your immaturity and inexperience against you if you won't hold my maturity against me. In the end, I look at Jeff, I have to say this. I was saving this for the closing, but I say it now. Your job, like Channel 11 says, is to hold the powerful accountable. Hold us accountable November the 8th, and don't fall for any sort of story you might hear today from one of these candidates.
Mr. Barksdale.
I think my main issue with I have not been privy to his conversations with his doctors. I frankly applaud him for revealing it, and I think he wouldn't be standing here today if he didn't feel like he could, if it was appropriate. So I'm not going to question that. I do think that it's appropriate that we ask that a commitment to serve out the full 6-year term, but I'm not going to question why he's here.
Lori Geary.
Mr. Barksdale, I want to ask you, there are several high-ranking Democrats who are supporting Senator Johnny Isakson, among them Governor Roy Barnes, former Governor Roy Barnes, Sam Nunn, Congressman David Scott. What do you think about that? Is that insulting to you that these high-profile Democrats have decided to support the Republican candidate?
Well, I'm not going to begrudge Senator Isakson the fact that he's been in politics 40 years and he's made relationships, and many of these go back to his college days, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I am viewed as an outsider. People don't know me as well, and that can be upsetting to people who've been in the establishment for so long. But what I'm up here to do is to say that I'm trying to fight for the people to get campaign finance reform, to make sure that the big money is not controlling the decisions, that people are being cared for, that we need make sure that incomes and jobs are present. That needs to be a priority. We can't have campaign contributions governing the system so that basically we serve profit and party instead of people. That's my objective, is to go to Washington and serve people, not profit and not party.
Mr. Buckley.
You know, let's face it, if Johnny was really conservative as he claims and as he's not, none of these people would be supporting him. I mean, they might like him. I mean, he's a very likable guy. Everyone likes Johnny. I like him, and from what I know of him. But
I was hoping that would be the case.
yeah, but the bottom line is, if he were really conservative, they wouldn't be supporting him. Let's face it, I've wondered in this race, why hasn't the Democratic media gone after Johnny for refusing to debate, other than this one time? Because I've run twice before, and we had like 6 debates each time. So why are they protecting him? And I finally came to the realization 2 days ago, it's because other than the Second Amendment, he's a Democrat. So if he wins, or Jim Barksdale wins, you get a Democrat. There are some differences, I will admit. Jim's a little bit more liberal than Johnny. My time's up.
Senator, your time is just beginning. Go ahead.
Is this my time to rebut or my time to answer a question?
Your time to rebut what you've heard.
I urge all of you to go look up this American conservative, whoever it is that he's quoting. I'll check them out.
Conservative Review.
Conservative, check them out. I know who some of the characters are, and I think if you check them out, you'll find out everybody's got an opinion. That's what life's all about. Their opinion just happens to be dead wrong when it comes to me.
Last question of this round is Kimberly Scott.
Many say that in addition to women, millennials will be very important in November. Do you think that is the truth? And if so, how do you plan to engage them to bring them to the polls to vote for you? And we can begin with Mr. Barksdale.
I absolutely agree, and I hope that it's true. The future belongs to that generation, and we need to make sure that they are actively involved. That's what was part of what was so inspirational, frankly, of what Senator Sanders accomplished in terms of bringing that voice into the public domain. I likewise, not because I'm channeling Senator Sanders, but because I wanted the most effective people on my campaign, have reached out and have hired a number of Senator Sanders' former staffers, and we are running a very aggressive campaign focused on social media and millennials to make sure they turn out to vote.
Mr. Buckley.
Yeah, the young people, please look at my website. I'm the only one looking out for you. I mean, the Democrats are going to give you, free college. But in the reality, on our current path, the system is going to collapse within 20 years. So you're looking at getting a free college education and then seeing a financial collapse of the country likely within 20 years. I've got all these credible authorities on my website. Many of them work for the government or did, and they all say the same result. So, and when democracies collapse and republics collapse, they become dictatorships. Look at Adolf Hitler. I'm the only one looking out for the young people.
Senator?
Millennials are going to play a huge role, and the answer to the specific question is, I don't have a Facebook face, and I don't do very good on Twitter, but I got a designated tweeter, and I do Facebook all the time, and try and reach millennials through the new ways to communicate. They don't turn on their TV anymore or read their newspaper. They communicate with each other electronically. I'm trying to make sure we get our message to them because they are the future. My granddaughter who's out there, Elizabeth, she can do things I can't do on my own television right now. They're born with better intellect and better ability to do those types of things, but they're about the future. I want to be a part of seeing to it the future they inherit is a country that's at least as rich, as prosperous, and as free as the one I did for my parents when they left.
All right, Senator. All right, that is all the time that we have for questions. Each candidate will now have 60 seconds for a closing statement. Senator Isakson, you get the first closing statement.
You've had a chance to hear from your 3 candidates for the United States Senate. You know their temperament, you know their issues, you know what they've got to say, you know what they'll say about each other. But it's really up to you on November the 8th. It's not up to us. We've done our job to run. It's your job to make the choice. I'll just end with a story that Zell Miller told in the last debate I had with him in 1990. When he looked at an audience just like this audience, he said, if you ever walk down a country road, you come to a fence post and there's a turtle sitting on the top of the fence post, you know one thing for certain, it did not get there by itself. I didn't get where I am by myself today. It's because of a lot of people, including my wonderful wife, the people that have supported me, the Georgia Republican Party, and the citizens of this state. I treasure the opportunities I have had. I thank you for your vote in the past. I would respect your vote in the future if you see fit. God bless each of you, and God bless the United States of America.
Mr. Buckley, it is your turn for a closing statement.
Georgia voters, our country has financial cancer. Let's talk wasted vote. A vote for Senator Isakson, who is now in his 70s and has shown no interest in solving the nation's financial problems, but in fact has been a large part of creating the problems, would be a wasted vote. He's not going to turn a new leaf and come up with all sorts of fight and vigor and ideas and bills to solve the problems. A vote for Mr. Barksdale, who would be a freshman Democratic senator in his 60s who has no unique ideas that are different from the general establishment of the Democratic Party would be a wasted vote. In contrast, if I win this election, Georgia, our state, takes the country in a whole new direction, one that works and lasts indefinitely. I've got the vigor, the fight, the ideas. I'm what we need at this point in time. Lastly, I would just like to say, after this election, no matter what happens, I ask the Libertarians, the Tea Partyists, and the financially responsible Republicans to come together and stop the Democrats and the big government Republicans from destroying our country. Thank you.
Is it, okay? Mr. Barksdale, you get the final closing statement.
Thanks. I'm fortunate and proud to be a sixth-generation Georgian. And that's why when I started my business over 30 years ago, I moved my family back to Georgia. I'm proud of those Georgia values, and I learned them from my grandfather. At age 18, he had to take over raising a family of 6 siblings when his father passed away unexpectedly. From that, my family learned that you always step up for your responsibilities. And that's why I was out cutting grass when I was age 8, delivering newspapers at 11, working at the gas station at age 15, and I worked all through high school. I had a sense of responsibility to my family. I've never inherited a dime. And that's why in 2008, when the financial crisis hit, I knew how bad it would be, and I went to the bank and borrowed every penny I could to make sure I didn't have to lay off any employees. I believe that Senator Isakson has lost that responsibility to you, the people. If you will stand with me on November 8th, I will stand with you, and together we can accomplish some great things.
And that concludes our debate. We'd like to remind voters that the general elections will be held on Tuesday, November 8th, and early voting already underway throughout our state. Our thanks to the candidates and to our panel of journalists. We also would like to thank the Atlanta Press Club for arranging tonight's debate. For more information about the Atlanta Press Club and all of the debates scheduled, they will host this general election season. You can visit theatlantapressclub.org. This debate will be archived there and on Georgia Public Broadcasting's website, gpb.org. I'm Jeff Hullinger of 11 Alive. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. And thanks for the Atlanta Press Club, the Loudermilk Young Debate Series. Have a great evening, everyone.